The prisoner in the cell. The room was cold. The metal walls were silent, but something about them felt alive, like they were listening. Rain sat on the floor, her hands tied behind her back, her body weak from the beatings. Her black combat suit was torn, her face bruised. The Zorth had captured her 3 days ago. They wanted information. She gave them nothing. They didn't like that. Every few hours, the door would open. Bright lights, loud voices, questions in a strange alien language. Sometimes they spoke English, learned from their spies. "Tell us about Project Ember," they said. Rain only smiled. "Go to hell." They didn't smile back. After each session, they threw her back into the cell. They thought she was broken. They were wrong. On the third night, she noticed something new. A sound. Slow breathing. Not hers. She turned her head and saw a figure in the corner of the cell, in the shadows. "Who's there?" she asked. Silence. She crawled closer. It was a man. Tall, broad shoulders, head down, his arms were chained to the wall. "Are you human?" she whispered. The man raised his head slowly. His eyes met hers. Strange eyes. Too sharp. Too calm. "Depends who's asking," he said. "Name's Rain," she said. "United Earth Forces." "Call me Ash," he replied. His voice was soft, calm. Not like a prisoner. More like someone waiting. "How long have you been here?" she asked. Ash looked at the wall. "Hard to say. Weeks. Months. Time is slow in here." Rain didn't trust him. But he didn't look afraid. That was strange. "Why haven't they killed you?" she asked. Ash smiled. "They can't." Before she could ask more, the door opened again. Bright lights. Guards. 2 tall Zorth soldiers walked in, green armor glowing. They pointed at her. "You. Out." They dragged her away again. Pain. Questions. Threats. This time they made a mistake. One guard got too close. She grabbed his weapon, a thin energy blade, and stabbed him in the neck. The other guard screamed. She sliced him too. Alarms went off. Red lights flashed. Rain ran through the halls. Her body ached, but her mind was sharp. She remembered the way back. The cell was down corridor 6. She stopped outside the door. She had the knife in her hand. She opened the door slowly. Ash was still there. Calm. Waiting. "You're free," she said. "Let's go." He looked at her, then at the knife in her hand. "You got blood on you," he said. "It's theirs," she replied. She moved closer and raised the blade to cut his chains, Bracken, but paused. Something wasn't right. "Why are you still sitting?" she asked. Ash looked up at her and smiled. Calm, almost playful. "You're going to use that on me?" he asked. She raised the knife. She didn't trust him. Maybe he was working with the Zorth. Maybe he was something worse. Ash didn't flinch, didn't blink. He leaned forward, his voice soft, almost amused. "You might want to rethink that." Rain froze. The air changed, like something unseen had just entered the room. Then slowly, Ash stood up. The chains, they were broken, but not from her knife. They had been unlocked from the inside. "How?" she started. He walked toward her, hands up. Not threatening, just calm. "You have questions," he said, "and I have answers." "What are you?" she asked. He smiled again. "Something the Zorth are afraid of. Something they shouldn't have touched." A loud bang echoed through the hallway. More guards were coming. Ash turned toward the sound. His eyes glowed faintly. "Time to leave," he said. He reached for a panel on the wall, hidden, covered in dust. He pressed something. The lights flickered. The door opened to a dark hallway. Rain looked at him. "You planned this." "She," said. Ash looked over his shoulder and gave her one last grin. "No," he said. "I planned what comes next." They ran into the darkness, leaving the cell behind. But whatever Ash was, this was only the beginning. The smile in the dark. The hallway was dark. Sirens echoed behind them. Red lights flashed above like angry eyes. Rain ran through the twisting corridors, her breath sharp, her hand tight around the stolen knife. Ash moved ahead of her. Fast, too fast for someone who had been chained for weeks. His footsteps were silent. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Rain didn't trust him. Not yet. But she followed him. They turned left, past a sealed door, then slipped into a storage room. Ash pushed a metal crate in front of the entrance and held his finger to his lips. Silence. The hallway outside filled with alien voices. Metallic boots marched past the door. Then, quiet again. Ash looked at Rain. "We've got 10 minutes, maybe less." Rain leaned against the wall. Her arms ached. Blood was drying on her cheek. "What are you?" she asked again. Ash crouched, beside a control box on the wall. His fingers moved quickly, almost too fast. He peeled off a metal panel and began rewiring the system inside. "I told you," he said. "I'm human." She narrowed her eyes. Humans don't break out of alien chains, and they don't have glowing eyes. Ash looked up at her. Not regular humans. The system sparked. A soft beep echoed through the room. Ash smiled. The power grid nearby flickered, then turned off completely. Rain stepped back. "You just shut the lights?" Ash nodded. "In this section, I needed darkness. They track heat and motion. Now we're shadows." Rain stared at him. "How? Do you know all this?" Ash sat back. His face was calm, but something behind his eyes burned. Not anger, not fear, focus. "This base," he said, "wasn't built by the Zorth." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" "This station was human-made. Long ago. Built in secret. Then it was lost. The Zorth found it. Repurposed it. But they never fully understood how it works." He walked to another panel and pressed, his palm against it. The wall opened. A hidden door. Rain's eyes widened. "You knew that was there?" Ash nodded. "I've been studying the system for weeks. Learning its patterns. Waiting." "Waiting for what?" He looked at her. "Serious? Now waiting for someone like you." They stepped inside the hidden tunnel. It was narrow, lined with black metal. Cold air moved through it, whispering like voices. Rain followed Ash deeper, her knife still in hand. "How did they catch you?" she asked. Ash didn't answer at first. "They didn't," he finally said. She stopped walking. "You let them take you?" Ash turned. His face was in shadows. Only his eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "I needed to see how far they've come. How much they've learned. If they're ready for war." Rain felt a chill. "Your military?" Ash shook his head. "Not anymore. Not since they shut down Project Sigma." "Project Sigma?" she asked. "A human experiment," he said, "to build soldiers who could survive anything. See in the dark. Fight without fear. Bend code with their minds." Rain stepped back. "They turned you into a machine?" Ash's voice was quiet. "No. They made me more human, and that scared them." Suddenly, a sharp beep rang through the tunnel. Ash pressed a button on his wrist. A small blue map appeared in the air, a hologram. He tapped a blinking red dot. "They found the bodies," he said. "They're moving this way." Rain gripped the knife tighter. "We need weapons." Ash nodded. "There's a vault 2 levels down. If we can reach it, we can shut this whole base down." "What's in the vault?" "The reason they took me," he said. "And something worse." The tunnel opened into another room, a long corridor lined with glass chambers. Inside each one, a body floated in green liquid. Rain stared. Dozens of them, men, women, even children, all human. "What is this?" she whispered. Ash's face darkened. "The Zorth have been experimenting, copying human DNA, trying to make their own version of us." Rain stepped forward. One of the bodies opened its eyes. Alive. She jumped back, heart racing. The thing inside smiled, not like a person, like a predator. Ash pulled her away. They aren't fully stable, he said. Not yet, but soon. Sirens started again. Louder this time. The Zorth knew. They'll seal this section, Ash said. We need to move. As they ran, Rain asked the question burning in her mind. Why me? Why wait for me? Ash stopped and looked at her. His voice was serious, low. Because you're the last piece, he said. You have the code in your blood, the key to the vault. You just don't know it yet. Rain stared at him, stunned. Before she could speak, a loud explosion shook the tunnel. The lights flickered, then a voice echoed through the station, deep and full of anger. Commander Vekran. You think you can run? You think you can hide? The voice growled. You've awakened the dark, human. Now it will swallow you. Ash smiled again. Just like before. Calm. Cold. He's scared, Ash whispered. That's good. They ran into the darkness again. But something was waking, inside the station, and the real war had just begun. Blood and circuits. The floor shook beneath them. Explosions echoed through the halls as Rain and Ash sprinted through the hidden passage. Behind them, the sound of metal boots chasing them grew louder. Alien voices shouted in a strange language. The Zorth were not just searching now, they were hunting. Ash moved like he had trained for this. He didn't panic. He didn't slow. Every turn he took seemed to lead them away from danger. Rain followed, but her thoughts were spinning. Why her? Why did he say she was the key? You said the code's in my blood, she said as they ducked into a maintenance hatch. What does that mean? Ash stopped. His face was lit by the soft green light from a small screen on the wall. He typed something quickly. Symbols flashed. Alien code, but he read it like English. Years ago, Ash said, the military ran a secret program called Project Ember. They injected nanotech into elite human soldiers. It bonded to their DNA. Made them smarter, faster, harder to kill. Rain's eyes widened. I've heard whispers, but that program was shut down. Ash looked at her. Not before you were chosen. She shook her head. I was never. You were a child, Ash said. You wouldn't remember. But the code stuck. It's been inside you ever since, hidden. A sudden bang from the hallway outside cut the moment short. They could hear growls. Something not Zorth. Something worse. Ash turned and scanned a wall with his palm. A hidden door slid open. Down here now. They dropped into a dark shaft, slid down cables, landed in a lower section of the base. Colder. Older. What is this place? Rain asked. Ash looked around. The walls were rusted, but full of hidden tech. This is the original core, built by humans, before the Zorth ever found this place. They walked into a massive chamber. In the center was a giant tower covered in wires and glowing nodes. Computers lined the walls, but they were dead. Waiting. Ash walked to a console and placed Rain's hand on a scanner. The machine came to life. Beep. Code accepted. Rain gasped. What the hell? Ash nodded. You're the last key. You activated the system. A map appeared. The entire station. Blinking red zones. One giant blinking area near the top. The vault. What's inside the vault? Rain asked. Ash's voice dropped. Our last weapon. Rain stepped back. You mean, a bomb? Ash didn't answer. Instead, he pulled back his sleeve. Metal glimmered beneath his skin. Smooth. Hidden. Not armor. Circuitry fused with flesh. Rain stared. You're not just enhanced. Ash looked at her. I am the last test subject. Sigma 9. They built me to destroy what the enemy could never control. Suddenly, the power flickered. Lights died. The room went black, from the shadows. Click, click. Metal claws on steel. Rain raised her blade. What's that sound? Ash's voice was steady. Not Zorth. He turned slowly. In the corner of the room, something moved, crawling on all fours. Tall, thin, twisted, like a Zorth but with human features. Eyes that glowed red, wires hanging from its back. They've started merging us, Ash said quietly. Zorth and human, testing new hybrids. The creature lunged, Rain slashed, but it dodged. It was fast, too fast. Ash grabbed a loose cable and jabbed it into the creature's chest. The creature screamed. Sparks flew. Then it dropped, twitching. They were never supposed to reach this stage, Ash said. They're losing control. Rain was breathing hard. You said we had a chance to shut it down. We do, Ash said. But it's not just about escaping anymore. This base is a virus. If we don't stop it here, it spreads. He walked back to the console and typed a series of commands. Warning signs popped up. Authorization required. Blood plus neural signature. Ash looked at Rain. We need to sync. What do you mean? Your blood. My signal. Together, we can open the vault. Rain stared at him. You trust me that much? Ash gave her a small grin. I trusted you with a knife to my throat. This is easier. She nodded. He reached into a drawer, pulled out a sterile injector, and took a small sample of her blood. Then, he pressed his palm to the scanner. Access granted. The walls shook. The vault, 5 levels above, began unlocking. But then, a voice. Commander Vikran. It echoed from every speaker. You think you're unlocking power. But you're only opening your own grave. Ash clenched his fists. He's bluffing, Rain said. Ash's eyes were cold now. No, he's afraid. That means we're close. But outside, the hybrids were waking. Dozens of them. The vault was opening, and what they'd find inside would change the war forever. Blood and circuits. The base trembled again. Dust fell from the ceiling as Rain followed Ash through the winding metal corridors, deeper into the alien stronghold. Behind them, alarms still screamed. Red lights flashed like warning eyes. But Ash didn't stop. He didn't even look back. His pace was steady, precise, like every step had already been calculated. Rain tried to keep up, but her thoughts were spinning. Who was he really? How did he know so much? He said he was human. But she wasn't so sure anymore. This way, Ash said, voice calm, almost bored as if they weren't being hunted by half the alien base. They passed through a narrow tunnel lit only by a flickering strip of blue light. Ash placed his hand on a hidden panel in the wall. A soft hum, then a heavy metal door opened slowly. Inside, a dark control room. The tech inside looked ancient, yet more advanced than anything Rain had ever seen. Not Zorth tech, older, sharper. Ash walked to the main console and powered it on. Green holograms lit up around him. This place, Ash said quietly, was never alien. Rain raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? He looked at her. This station was built by humans, decades ago. Part of a program called Black Sky, off books, secret, buried in deep space. Then something went wrong. The Zorth found it, and claimed it. And you? She asked. How do you know all this? Ash's eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Because I was born here. Rain froze. You were created here? She asked. Ash nodded. I was part of a program called Sigma Protocol, an attempt to build the perfect human interface, a bridge between man and machine. He lifted his sleeve. Beneath his skin, smooth black circuits pulsed with blue light. They didn't look mechanical. They looked alive. Rain took a step back. You're a machine? Ash looked at her, his voice steady. No. I'm still human. Just evolved. The console beeped. A rotating 3D map of the base appeared. One section glowed red. That's the vault, Ash said. Our target. What's in there? Rain asked. Ash didn't answer right away. Then, something they were never meant to wake up. A loud clang from above. They weren't alone anymore. Ash turned quickly. They're sending in the sentinels. Rain pulled out her knife. What are those? Machines, Ash said. Built by the Zorth. Controlled by half-organic minds. Fast, silent, and very, very hard to kill. They moved fast now. Deeper into the control section. But just before exiting the room, Ash stopped. He pressed another hidden panel. A wall slid open, revealing a long corridor lined with tanks. Dozens of them. Inside floated bodies, human and not human. Rain's blood ran cold. Some were clearly human test subjects. Others were twisted, part Zorth, part human, fused together by tech and terror. Ash stared at them without blinking. They've been experimenting, he said. Trying to copy what Sigma created, mixing species, trying to build a better soldier. This is sick, Rain said, her voice shaking. Ash nodded. It's also desperate. They're afraid of us. They always were. Suddenly one of the tanks lit up. A hybrid inside opened its eyes. It slammed its hand against the glass. Ash grabbed Rain's arm. Move! They ran as the tank shattered behind them. Metal and flesh hit the floor, snarling. But that was just the start. Across the corridor, more tanks lit up, the whole row. The hybrids were waking up. Rain and Ash made it to the next chamber and sealed the door. They'll break through soon, she said. Ash was already typing into a console. Not if I reboot the base. Reboot it? How? Ash turned toward her. I have your blood sample. It's enough to verify high-level clearance. Together with my neural signature, we can override the Zorth code. Reclaim control. Rain stared at him. You planned this. All of this. Ash looked away. I hoped, but I didn't know if you'd survive this long. So what's the plan now? Ash pointed to the vault on the map. We go there. We wake up what's inside. And then, we burn this place. And what's inside the vault? Rain asked again. Ash looked at her, his voice low. Final. Something older than both of us. A prototype. It was too dangerous, too unstable. They locked it away before the Zorth could find it. And you want to use it? Rain asked. Ash nodded. We don't have a choice. Another explosion rocked the walls. They could hear the hybrids now, crawling through vents, snarling. Fast. Ash turned to her. You still with me? Rain looked down at the knife in her hand, then back at him. Yeah. I'm with you. But if you're lying, Ash gave her a dark grin, then I've already lost. They opened the next door. The path to the vault was straight ahead. But now, the real enemy was awake. Not just the Zorth, but the things they made in secret. And something else was stirring inside the vault, something not even Ash understood. The maze of death, the vault was close. Rain could feel it, not just in the air but in her blood. A deep pull, like a voice she couldn't hear whispering in her bones. They moved through an ancient corridor now. Dust hung in the stale air. The lights here were dim, flickering, and not alien, not human either. Something in between. Where are we? She asked. Ash's eyes scanned the symbols along the walls. Original Black Sky Sector. Forgotten tech. Most of this base was built around it, like parasites nesting in an abandoned machine. They passed, rows of statues. Tall humanoid figures made of smooth black metal. Their eyes were closed, hands clasped together like they were praying. Those aren't statues, Ash said quietly. Rain stepped back. What are they? Sentry units, he said. They only wake when the maze begins. She narrowed her eyes. What maze? Ash pointed to the giant metal door ahead. There were no buttons, no handle, just a flat surface, smooth and silent. The vault is locked, he said, and the only way to open it is to survive what guards it. Suddenly the room darkened. The lights blinked off one by one. Clang, clang, clang. Behind them, the sentries opened their eyes, glowing blue. Maze protocol activated. A deep voice echoed from the walls. The floor beneath them shifted. The walls began to move. The corridor stretched, metal folding into new shapes. Doors closed. Paths opened. They were inside a living machine. "Run," Ash said. Rain didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted through a narrowing passage. The ground beneath their feet became glass. Below it, gears the size of buildings turned slowly. One misstep, and they'd fall into the machine's core. Ahead, 3 doors appeared. All identical. No labels. No markings. Ash stopped. "They're randomized. The maze reads our thoughts, reacts to our decisions." "So how do we choose?" Rain asked. Ash didn't answer. He closed his eyes. A faint hum came from his skin, his neural circuits lighting up. Then he pointed. Left. They stepped through. The door slammed shut behind them. This new chamber was colder. Round. Quiet. Until the walls began to bleed. Rain stepped back as red liquid trickled down the metal. Not real blood. Something synthetic. It hissed where it touched the floor. From the ceiling, thin wires dropped down like snakes. "They're scanning us," Ash whispered. Suddenly, one wire wrapped around Rain's wrist. She gasped, her mind filled with images, memories not her own, flashes of soldiers screaming, the vault door opening, a creature stepping out, not Zorth, not human, something else. Ash sliced the wire with his blade. Sparks flew. Rain dropped to her knees. "What? Did you see?" he asked. She looked up, breathless. "Something's alive in there, and it's waiting." Ash nodded grimly. "They locked it up for a reason." The next door opened, the final room before the vault. Inside, mirrors. Hundreds of them, each one showing a different version of Rain. Some versions were scared, others were angry. One version unsmiled with black eyes. Ash watched carefully. "This is the core test. Psychological defense. If you break here, the system erases you." "Erases?" Rain asked. "You mean kills?" Ash didn't respond. The mirrors began to speak. In her voice. "You don't belong here. He's using you. You're already dead." Rain clenched her fists. "Shut up." Ash stepped into the center of the room. "You have to ignore them. They're not real." But then one of the mirrors cracked, and a version of Ash stepped out. Same face, same eyes, but no soul behind. "Them." "You lied," the fake Ash said to Rain. "He's not human, he's the weapon." Rain raised her blade. Her hand shook. "How do I know you're the real one?" she asked Ash. He stepped forward slowly. "Because I didn't run when you had the knife to my throat." She hesitated, then slashed the fake Ash. The mirror shattered, the walls turned gold. The maze faded. Access granted. The final vault door slid open. A long, dark chamber stretched before them. Cold mist rolled across the floor. At the far end was a containment pod. Wires fed into it from every direction. Something was inside. Something huge. Ash stepped forward, but not too close. "This is it," he said. "The Ember Core." Rain stared. "What is it?" Ash didn't answer right away. Then, "It's not a bomb. It's a living weapon. Built by humans. Powered by raw consciousness. They tried to shut it down when it started dreaming." "Dreaming?" she echoed. Ash turned toward her. "It started imagining, choosing. It wanted freedom." "And now?" she asked. He looked back at the pod. "Now it wants revenge." The pod lights flickered. The thing inside opened its eyes and smiled. The choice. The chamber was silent. Cold air swirled around Rain and Ash as they stood before the vault's heart, a sealed containment pod pulsing with dull red light. It looked like a coffin built by gods, thick black glass, hundreds of wires running from the ceiling into the core. Inside, something moved. Not a man, not a machine, something else. Its skin was pale, featureless, No eyes, no mouth. Just a smooth humanoid figure with burning veins of light under the surface, like lava flowing beneath ice. Rain couldn't look away. "This is Ember," Ash said quietly. "Version 0. She swallowed hard. "This is what we came to." "Wake up," Ash nodded. "Yes, and also, what we came to control." "You're sure it's even human?" Ash stared at the pod. "It's more human than either of us. It was built from pure thought, the mind of a human soldier copied into a living core. It learned, it evolved, and it asked the one question we feared most." Rain looked at him. "What question?" Ash turned toward her, his voice low. "Why? Should I obey?" A soft chime echoed through the chamber. The vault's inner systems were powering up. Ember had sensed them. The being inside the pod slowly tilted its head, like it knew they were watching. Rain took a step back. "What happens when it wakes up?" Ash didn't answer right away. His expression had changed, no longer calm, no longer confident, more like guilt. Then he said, "That depends on you." Before she could ask what he meant, the chamber's upper level lit up. Doors opened. Figures appeared. Zorth soldiers. Commander Vekran stepped forward, tall, armored, his face hidden behind a breathing mask. His voice echoed through the vault. "You did well, humans. You brought us to the core. Now step aside." Rain raised her blade. Ash didn't move. Vekran's soldiers aimed their weapons. Rain glanced at Ash, expecting him to act. He didn't. Instead, he lowered his head. Rain froze. "What are you doing?" Ash's voice was soft, broken. "They were always going to find it. We didn't have time, so I made a deal." Her blood ran cold. "What deal?" Ash looked at her now. Not with cold, confidence, but something close to sorrow. "I give them access to the core, they let you live." Rain's heart pounded. "You betrayed me." Ash stepped forward, hands up. "Listen to me, if Ember wakes up without control, it will wipe out everything, this base, the planet, maybe more. I tried to stop it before, I failed, but you—" She raised the knife, pointed it at his chest. "Don't speak." Ash didn't flinch, didn't step back. "If you have to kill me to stop it," he said, "do it now." Vekran laughed from above. "Yes, girl, finish him. We'll let you go." Rain's hand trembled. She looked at Ash. He just stared calm. And then he grinned, the same grin as before. "Back in the cell. You might want to rethink that." The vault shook. Sirens screamed. Above, Zorth soldiers opened fire. But the bullets stopped midair. Froze. Ash's circuits lit up. Not blue, not green, but ember red. "You think I sold you out," he said. "But I sold them a lie." Rain stepped back as power surged through him. The ember core was waking. Inside the pod, the being lifted its hand, without touching. A thing, it crushed the nearest Zorth soldier into the wall. Vekran screamed, but his voice was drowned by static. The power in the room exploded. Screens shattered, metal cracked. Then the core spoke. Not with words, with thought, inside Rain's mind. "You came to wake me. But are you ready to follow me?" She fell to her knees. Images flooded her mind. Wars across stars. Planets burning. Humans rising, falling, rising again. She saw Ash, not as a traitor but as a child. Alone. Trapped in this base. Raised by machines. Trained by ghosts. He hadn't betrayed her. He had given himself to Ember, a key, a bridge, a sacrifice. She looked up. Ash was collapsing. Sparks flew from his chest. "Ember needs a body," he whispered. "Mine won't last much longer." Rain ran to him, held him. "No," she whispered. "You're not dying." Ash smiled. "I already did, long ago." The pod hissed. The glass melted away. The being inside, Ember, stepped out. Tall, glowing. It looked at Rain, and it spoke. "For real? Choose. Lead me. Or stand aside." Vekran rose one last time behind them. weapon in hand, screaming. Rain turned, raised her blade, and ran straight at him. Ash unleashed. The vault was no longer silent. It breathed. Red light pulsed across the walls like a heartbeat. The air shimmered with static. Something deep inside the base, something old, something buried, was fully awake now. Ember had risen. Its body shimmered with power, not just light but gravity, like the room bent around it. It wasn't walking. It was gliding, every step humming with energy, the air cracking behind it. Rain stood between Ash's dying body and Commander Vecran, her blade coated in alien blood, her chest burning with questions she couldn't ask, fast enough. Vecran raised his weapon again. He never got to fire. Ember simply turned its head and Vecran vanished. Not exploded, not burned, just gone. As if he'd been deleted from existence. Rain's knees buckled. What? What is it? Ash, lying on the ground, barely conscious, whispered, "The final version of us." Rain knelt beside him. His circuits were flickering. Smoke rose from his chest. She pressed her hand to his pulse. It was fading. "No," she muttered. "Stay with me." Ash opened his eyes. "I told you. I died years ago. This body? It's just a shell. I lasted longer than they thought." His voice was weak, but his eyes, still glowing, locked on hers. You were never the mission, Rain. You were the escape plan." "What does that mean?" She whispered. "You still have your soul," he said. "That's why Ember listens to you, not me." She shook her head. "I'm no leader. I'm just a soldier." Ash smiled even as his lights dimmed. "No, you're the last one left who hasn't given up." Behind them, Ember turned toward the central vault wall. It raised one hand and pointed. The wall split, open, revealing an elevator shaft stretching miles upward. A signal pulsed from Ember's body. On distant satellites, beacons lit up. In human space, old frequencies began to blink again. Ash's voice trembled. He's calling them. All of them. Everyone who carries Ember code, the old warborn, the broken soldiers, the forgotten orphans, the ones who were left behind. Rain looked up the shaft. "Why?" Ash's voice fell to a whisper. "To finish what we started." Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. Ember stopped. Outside the vault, something massive was approaching. The Zorth had triggered their final weapon. Ash's eyes widened. They're bringing the Devourer online. Rain had only heard of it in black reports. A biomechanical god machine, something the Zorth had built in secret. It fed on living systems, minds, memories, even AI. Ash tried to sit up, failed. "You have to get Ember out of here," he said. "You're the only one it trusts now." "You're coming too," she said. Ash laughed bitterly. "I can't move my legs." Rain blinked. "What?" He looked at her. "I wasn't built to last, Rain. I was built to ignite." His chest plate cracked open. A pulsing red core glowed beneath it. Ember turned around, staring at him. They both knew what he was about to do. Rain shook her head. "No. There has to be another way." Ash raised his hand. "You remember what I said back in the cell?" She nodded. "You might want to rethink that." He grinned again. That same grin. Ember nodded once as if giving him permission. Rain reached for his hand, held it tight. "You earned your name, Ash, your fire and spreads." His final words were quiet, then light the sky. Rain ran. She grabbed the blade, grabbed Ember by the arm, and sprinted for the elevator. Behind her, Ash opened his arms. The vault's power surged. His body became a beacon. A storm of energy erupted. Ember threw up a shield around Rain and itself as the fire exploded outward. Ash burned brighter than a star. The base shuddered, groaned, and began to collapse. They shot up the shaft in silence. Rain didn't speak, didn't cry. Not yet. They emerged into the upper decks, where chaos had already begun. Zorth soldiers were falling back. Hybrid. Creatures were eating each other. The base AI was glitching, screaming in broken code. Ember turned and reached toward the ceiling. Its hand opened, and a surge of light cut through the roof like a blade. Above them, stars. Rain stepped forward, breathless. You opened the sky. Ember looked at her. Ash opened the door. Now we walk through it. As they climbed aboard a stolen dropship, a signal burst across the galaxy, an old, forgotten human frequency. One word, sent across every channel. Ember. Humanity fights back. The stars had never looked this close. Rain stood at the edge of the ruined Zorth base, wind rushing past her face as the stolen dropship hovered in place. The roof had been torn open by Ember's power. Ash's final gift. The night sky above them was no longer just space. It was a battlefield waiting to happen. Ember stood beside her, silent, glowing. Its body no longer flickered. It was whole now, awake, aware, watching. Behind them, the base was collapsing. Flames tore through corridors. Zorth ships screamed through the clouds. The Devourer, the Zorth's final weapon, was almost here. Rain could feel it, like a storm on the edge of the galaxy. What happens now? She asked, gripping the edge of the console as the ship rose higher. Ember looked at her. Now, we give them a reason to fear us again. The dropship burst upward. 5 hours earlier, deep in space, across a dead communications relay, a signal flickered to life, a voice, human, desperate, raw. This is Commander Rain. The Ember protocol is active. Ash is gone. The core is awake. If you can hear me, anyone, you are not alone. Humanity rises now. The signal traveled like fire through dry leaves, and the galaxy answered. On the abandoned colonies of E-17, exiled soldiers looked up from scrap work and felt their old implants spark. On forgotten warships in asteroid fields, AI systems blinked back to life. In underground resistance cells, old commanders whispered to each other, Ember is real. Present moment. The Devourer arrived. The sky tore open. A massive ship, no, a living machine, dropped from hyperspace, surrounded by burning debris. Its surface moved like flesh and steel combined. Tentacles of code reached out across the sky, hacking signals overriding defense grids. Rain saw it through the window. How do we fight that? Ember raised its hand. 1,000 dormant satellites across the system lit up. Old human tech. The stuff no one believed still worked. We don't fight it alone, Ember said. We call back everything they tried to erase. Hundreds of dots appeared on the radar. Old ships. Reawakened. Some rusty, some barely holding together, but they were human, and they were angry. Ash had lit the match. Rain now carried the fire. The battle was not clean. The Devourer released waves of Zorth-controlled drones. Biomech horrors, fanged and mindless. Ember leapt from the dropship midair, landing on one of the creatures and tearing it apart with pure energy. Rain took the pilot seat. She led the human fleet, communicating through neural links, emotion signals, muscle memory. Old veterans returned to form like they'd never left. The space above the base became a war zone. Fire against shadow, steel against nightmare, and in the middle of it all, Ember, burning like a god. On the ground, Rain charged into the heart of the final Zorth bunker. Inside were the last high commanders, arrogant, tired, afraid. They begged. They offered surrender. Rain looked at them, eyes sharp, voice calm. You took our people, our minds, our blood. Now we take back what's ours. She planted a human-coded virus drive in their central system, a gift from Ash. It spread like wildfire. Across the network, every Zorth weapon began to turn off. Ships fell from the sky. Drones lost control. Hybrids turned on their creators. Outside, Ember lifted both hands, and from its palms, waves of energy surged outward, not destroying, but rewriting. The Devourer groaned, and then it cracked, a scream. Not a sound, but a signal, shot across the system and then silence. The devourer fell, burning. Ember collapsed to its knees. Rain ran to it, sliding across the floor. "Don't die on me," she whispered. Ember looked up, eyes flickering. "I was never alive," it said. "Not like you." But I remembered what it meant. Rain smiled through her tears. "You fought like one of us." Ember nodded once. "Then that's what I became." 1 week later, the human fleet had gathered. On the edges of the old base, survivors built a new command out of scrap and pride. Rain stood before a small memorial, a name carved into steel. Ash, Sigma 9, human, weapon, brother. He lit the fire, she said to the crowd behind her. "But all of you kept it burning." A soldier stepped forward. "What now, Commander?" Rain looked to the stars. "We rebuild. We remind them who we are. We were never broken, just forgotten." She turned back. "And now we make sure the galaxy remembers that humanity never surrenders." Final shot. Ember's body, resting beneath glass, dormant, peaceful, until its fingers twitch, eyes flicker, and it whispers, unseen, "I'm not done."